Okay, welcome back. This is the last video in our series on common React patterns, and today we're going to talk about conditional rendering. If you don't have the code from the previous section where we made the tweet creation button, please check that out. There's a checkpoint in the notes, but I'm excited to get started. So I want to be able to have the user kind of tell us what their username is going to be. To do that, I'm going to make another component called the user creation component, maybe. And this is going to be super similar to our tweet input component because we are in kind of the same way, handling some text input and then, having a button creating that. So for now, we're just going to copy paste the code. It's in the checkpoint. We can kind of check that out. So as we did for adding tweets, I'm going to first sketch out the functionality that we need from our user creation before we actually code the component. So let's make, first a state variable for the username, right? And we can kind of just call that, set username and set username. A good default value is kind of this empty string, right? And I want to be able to create a new user, right? Or create a user. And in this case, this is actually a super simple function, right? We're just going to take our new username, and then we're just going to say, oh, set the username to this new username. Ta-da! And you might say, this seems like it's kind of a useless function. And maybe I agree. But if your app becomes more complicated, like you need to, for example, log in or check if the user exists or something like that, having a function like this is super helpful. So now what we want to do is only show the set your own username option if the user already has not set their username. And we can do that with something called JavaScript's ternary operator. The ternary operator is a little hard to explain without an example, so let's just run through an example right now. We're going to say, hey, if the username is equal to the empty string, which is the default value, so nothing has changed, then let's show the user creation component, right? And we'll pass in, we made this function called create user, so we're going to pass in that function there. And then we'll have this colon, and then we're just going to put in here what we had earlier, this compose tweet thing. So using this example, what does the ternary operator actually mean? It says, and there's three things. That's why it's called a ternary operator, right? First is this condition. This is like a Boolean condition. If this condition is true, do the first thing. In this case, we're going to return this user creation component. And if the username is not empty, so this thing is false, we'll do the second thing. So yeah, that wasn't too tricky. In addition, right, we also probably want to actually now use this new username for the author. So I'm going to just edit this new tweets function to do that. And yeah, that's it. Now we can actually introduce ourselves. We can say Matt and Shars, for example, hit that, and then we can write our own tweet. So like Hades is the best game ever. Once we hit create, we can notice here that we've now used our new username, and we said, what the best game ever is. I'll say one more thing, maybe, it'd probably be convenient if the user could see what their username is going to be. So let's do that. And I'm going to show you the other kind of conditional rendering. So I'm going to add a header over here. And here, if you noticed, I've used the and function, which is normally used to say if this thing and this thing are both true, the final thing is true. But we're going to cheat a little bit. So JavaScript has this thing called short circuiting. And long story short, it basically means if this thing is false, don't run this thing, right? Because if one of the things is false, there's no way the other one is true, makes the final thing true. So we can use this as shorthand to say if this thing is true, then show this thing. But if this thing is false, don't show this thing. And this is very useful if instead of showing one thing or another when something is true, you want to either show something or show nothing at all. So using this new thing, if I type in, for example, Arjun here and I hit create, now it says hello Arjun, and we can again write our own tweet, for example, hit create, and then bang. And again, all these likes things work straight out of the box. That's kind of one of the big benefits of using React. So yeah, that's it. As a quick recap of what we covered in this video, we kind of glossed over creating a new component called user creation that works the exact same way as the compose tweet component worked. And then we covered two different kinds of conditional rendering. One is using JavaScript's ternary operator, which lets us show either one thing or the other. And the other way we did it was with the short circuiting of the Boolean and, which lets us show one thing or nothing at all. Also, this is a lot of stuff. We covered a lot of different things in React in a short amount of time. And hopefully this gives you just enough experience to either start making your own app and workshop on it, or explore more features of React and not having the documentation scare you. Our last video in this series is going to be about how to deploy your app and show everyone in the world how awesome the thing that you made is. So stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you in the next one.